Hello friends, hello professionals, and welcome back to my channel, The Sea of Regulation. I am back with a part 2 to my prior video, Governance and AML CFT Compliance. And before I dive in, let me get my usual disclaimers out of the way. I am a financial services regulator. I am not a lawyer, and I'm not a professional advisor. And the views on this channel are definitely all my own and do not represent the views of any international standard setting body or regulatory authority. Now with that out of the way, let's dive in. So in my last video, I was looking at some of the issues that might be there in relation to corporate governance and AML CFT compliance and making sure that the link between the two was very clear. But just in case you haven't seen that video yet, I'm going to put it in the description below. One of the things that is essential for directors and senior managers is to make sure that the firm is aligned to its strategic objectives and that it complies with the law. That includes AML CFT regulations and laws. So just to make that clear, it is not just the responsibility of the compliance officer, although many would like to think so. So if you've looked at my first video, you would have known that there are a number of issues that are flagged. This video looks at some of the ways that you can address these things to make sure that you have really good corporate governance structures and really good compliance. So the first thing, one of the things that I think is essential for firms is to have a bit of design thinking. Not all firms are alike. How are you aligning yourself towards a strategy to make sure that you are effective? Now, as a director or senior manager, you need certain data points coming into you to make sure that you are fulfilling those obligations. Using technology, you can start looking at a little more than just risks. You can be looking at dashboards that tell you whether you have a hot spot in relation to a particular senior management area. Do you have discrepancies coming out of finance? Are there certain accounts of your business that are not reporting in a timely manner? How do you know that beyond it being intuitive? If you don't have some sort of tickler system or triggering mechanism to tell you that, hey, you've received 10 reports, but it should be 12, or you've received all 12 reports and you're thinking, it looks good, but within each report, there's some of those filings that are not complete and you have a senior manager that's hoping that you don't read them. How do you actually look at receiving your data and your reporting, your filings internally to make sure that you're getting the information that you need in a timely manner? And do you have people who are habitually late in providing reports to the board or to other senior managers? That is what I mean by design thinking. You have to actually think about how best it is to receive the data so that you can intelligently interrogate that data. Or more simply put, know what's going on. It's the first rule of CYA. You need to know what's going on, especially if you have oversight of a firm. And if you're a regulated firm, know that regulators are actually beginning to drill down and issue penalties in relation to the people and not necessarily a penalty on the firm, because guess what? There are no good or bad firms, but there are good and bad people. Now, in relation to data, I could go on quite a bit in relation to a lot of the things that I have seen, but I would maybe think there could be an app for that, and maybe there's an app coming. Watch this space. That's what I would see. Now, if you are looking at monitoring your staff and certain inputs for compliance, you need to make sure that you have an internal audit mechanism that really works to help you ensure that monitoring is being done in the best way possible. There are a number of issues that come up when you're talking about internal audit, and from my vantage point, internal audits are made out to be a bad thing. People have it as being this big involved process. But it's almost like the carpenter says, measure twice and cut once. When you have an internal audit to conduct, it's more important for you to scope that internal audit carefully. So you don't have the scope too broad and you have this thing that's going on forever. You can have a SEAL Team 6 of internal audit to address tiny issues and get back reports in a timely manner to the board of directors. And I think that that's a particular strategy that would help firms to figure out whether they're meeting their targets or not. One of the other things that I would want to address right here, right now, in terms of AML CFT regulations particularly, boards appoint a compliance officer, and that compliance officer will sensitize the board, train the board. Sometimes boards are not wanting to be trained, and that is a difficult issue. But I get it. Some compliance officers may not be tailoring their training to the board. You see, the training that the board should get wouldn't be the same as what training general staff would get. So there is sometimes a disconnect in relation to how do I train a board? Questions compliance officers ask. But it's really important to ensure that they're sensitized to new changes in AML CFT laws. And it's an ever-evolving environment. In the fintech space, we have the FATF travel rule. We have a lot of information coming out in relation to the direction of travel. I've seen documents put out by the Bank of International Settlements and other supranational organizations. And if you're interested in me delving into that content a bit more as it relates to fintechs and innovators and DeFi, definitely drop it in the comments below, and I'll touch on that in a future video. But as it relates to corporate governance, I would want you to take home one particular idea, that it's all of the board's responsibility for AML CFT compliance. It's not just the compliance officer, but compliance officers, lean in. Lean in, compliance officers. You need to actually get a little more creative as it relates to training your senior staff. Giving them the same vanilla stuff is not going to cut it anymore. And it might be a bit of a challenge in relation to your wider duties, but the job is not going to be easy, and I'm sure there are resources out there. So ensure that your board understands the importance of having that training, but also make sure it's tailored for them, or reach out for resources in ways that could help. But guys, this is a part 2. Definitely check on the part 1. And I want you to do a few things. Share this video if you found it interesting. Definitely like it. It helps with that YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't, and hit the notification bell for when I drop my future videos. And until the next one, guys, I'll see you.